Commander Maya Rivera stood at the viewport of the diplomatic shuttle, watching the massive Xeraxian vessel grow larger against the backdrop of Jupiter's swirling storms. The alien ship resembled a massive nautilus shell crafted from living metal, its iridescent surface shifting colors as it rotated slowly in space. After 6 months of careful communication, humanity was about to have its first face-to-face contact with an advanced alien civilization. Nervous? Major James Chen asked, coming to stand beside her. The tactical specialist's reflection in the viewport showed his usual calm demeanor, but Rivera could see the tension in his shoulders. Wouldn't you be? She adjusted the collar of her dress uniform. We're about to make history. Or get eaten, Lieutenant Kai Patel chimed in from his station at the navigation console. The young xenolinguist had been crucial in decoding the Xeraxians' complex language patterns, but his dark humor hadn't endeared him to the brass back on Earth. Not helpful, Patel, Dr. Elena Volkov called from where she was triple-checking her diplomatic briefing materials. The xenoanthropologist had spent the entire journey studying everything they knew about Xeraxian culture, which wasn't much. The Xeraxians had appeared in Earth's solar system 3 months ago, positioning their massive vessel just beyond Jupiter's orbit. Their first transmission had been simple: "We come to evaluate." What followed was a careful dance of communication, leading to this moment, an invitation to send a small diplomatic team to discuss Earth's potential membership in what they called the Galactic Concordat. The shuttle's comm system crackled. "Human vessel, you are cleared for approach. Follow the guidance beam to docking chamber 3. Rivera nodded to Patel, who began the docking sequence. "Remember everyone, we're here to represent Earth. Let's show them humanity's best face." The docking procedure went smoothly, too smoothly, Rivera thought. The Xeraxians had provided perfectly calibrated protocols for their systems, something that should have taken months of technological exchange to achieve. She filed that observation away with the other small inconsistencies she'd noticed. They were met at the airlock by their first sight of actual Xeraxians. The aliens stood nearly 8 feet tall, their bodies covered in what appeared to be living armor that shifted and flowed like liquid mercury. Their heads were elongated and smooth, with 3 sets of eyes arranged in a triangular pattern. What struck Rivera most was how they moved, perfectly synchronized, like dancers in a ballet or soldiers on parade. "Welcome, representatives of Earth," the lead Xeraxian's words emerged not from anything resembling a mouth, but from vibrations in their armor that their translators converted to speech. "I am First Observer NX Thalax. Please, follow." They were led through corridors that seemed to breathe, the walls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Rivera noticed how the passages they took seemed to be reshaping themselves behind them, making it impossible to map their route. Another detail that set off warning bells in her mind. The chamber they were finally led to was massive, its ceiling lost in shadows above. A circular platform occupied the center, surrounded by what appeared to be viewing galleries rising in tiers around it. "Please," NX Thalax gestured to the platform, "take your positions." Rivera hesitated. "I was under the impression we would be meeting with your diplomatic council." "You are." The Xeraxians' armor rippled with patterns that Patel had told them indicated amusement. "But first, you must be evaluated." The platform beneath their feet suddenly hummed to life, a field of energy surrounding them before anyone could react. Rivera's hand went to her sidearm, only to find it gone, along with all their other equipment. "What is this?" she demanded, keeping her voice steady despite the rising alarm. NX Thalax's 3 sets of eyes blinked in sequence. "Did you truly believe we would simply welcome a new species into the galactic community without testing their worthiness? Every race must prove themselves. Every race must face the trials." The platform began to rise, and around them, the viewing galleries came alive with light, revealing thousands of alien forms of various species, all watching intently. "Welcome, representatives of Earth," NX Thalax's voice boomed through the chamber, now addressing both them and the audience, "to the proving grounds. Your species' future will be determined by your performance in 3 trials, trials of body, mind, and spirit. Survive, and humanity will be welcomed as equals. Fail. The platform locked into place high above the chamber floor. Panels began sliding open around them, revealing what looked like training grounds or obstacle courses, but with configurations that seemed to change and shift even as they watched. The first trial begins in 100 of your seconds, NX Thalax announced. Remember, you represent not just yourselves, but your entire species. Choose your actions carefully. Rivera looked at her team, seeing the same mix of fear, anger, and determination she felt reflected in their eyes. This wasn't what they had prepared for, but they were trained to adapt, to survive. More importantly, they were human, and if these aliens wanted to test humanity's worth, they were about to learn exactly what that meant. Orders, Commander. Chen asked quietly, already scanning their surroundings for advantages they could use. Rivera's mind raced through options, protocols, possibilities. They had no weapons, no equipment, and no idea what they were about to face. But they had something these aliens clearly didn't expect: they had each other, and they had the weight of human history behind them. Countless generations of ancestors who had faced impossible odds and survived. "We play their game," she said finally, her voice hard with determination. "But we play it our way. Patel, keep observing everything, every pattern, every reaction. Volkov, study the arena's layout, look for anything we can use. Chen, you're with me, we need to figure out what kind of threats we're about to face. And if we can't win?" Volkov asked, though her voice held no fear, only clinical curiosity. Rivera's lips curved in a grim smile. "Then we'll do what humans have always done, we'll change the rules." The countdown continued, and high above, thousands of alien eyes watched to see if humanity would prove worthy of the stars. They had no idea they were about to witness something unprecedented in their carefully ordered trials, the beginning of a revolution. The arena floor shimmered like a desert mirage, its surface transforming before their eyes. What had been smooth metal moments ago now rose and fell in waves, forming structures, obstacles, and what appeared to be active terrain. Commander Rivera watched as crystalline formations erupted from the ground, creating a maze-like battlefield bathed in an eerie purple light. Anyone else getting the feeling this isn't their first time running this show? Chen muttered, his back pressed against Rivera's as they surveyed their surroundings. The tactical specialist's military training was evident in his stance, even without weapons. The patterns in the energy signatures, Patel observed, his eyes tracking the shifting landscape. They're similar to the ones we saw in their language structure. It's not random, there's a rhythm to it. A haunting tone echoed through the chamber, and the alien audiences in their viewing galleries fell silent. First observer NX Thalax's voice resonated from all directions. The first trial tests not merely combat prowess, but adaptation. Face our guardians, humans. Show us how your species handles superior force. The crystal formations pulsed with internal light, and from their faceted surfaces emerged what Rivera first took to be reflections. But these images stepped out of the crystal, taking solid form, humanoid figures made of living crystal and light, each wielding weapons that seemed to grow from their arms. "Fascinating," Volkov breathed, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her survival instinct. "They're using our own form against us, psychological warfare combined with physical challenge." Less analyzing, more surviving, Rivera commanded as the first wave of crystalline warriors advanced. "Patel, keep tracking those patterns. Chen, with me, we need to test their capabilities. Volkov, find us cover and look for weaknesses in the arena itself." The crystal warriors moved with fluid grace, their movements precise and calculated. Rivera rolled under the first strike, feeling the energy blade pass where her head had been. The creature's fighting style was familiar, too familiar. "They're using earth martial arts," she called out as she came up in a defensive stance. "They've been studying us longer than we thought." Chen was already engaged with two of the warriors, his hand-to-hand combat training serving him well. Confirmed. This one just tried a perfect judo throw. But they're predictable, like fighting a training program. Patel ducked behind a crystal formation as energy blasts peppered his position. The patterns are accelerating. Every time we adapt to their strategy, the rhythm shifts. Rivera's mind raced as she analyzed the situation. The crystal warriors were formidable but limited by their programming. Each time the humans displayed a new tactic or adaptation, the warriors would incorporate it into their next attack, learning, but bound by rules and patterns. They're not testing our fighting ability, she realized, dodging another strike. They're testing our ability to innovate. Volkov, what have you found? The xenoanthropologist had been studying the crystal formations while staying out of the main fight. The crystals are connected to the arena's power grid. Each formation has what appears to be a resonance frequency, they vibrate when the warriors are near. Can we use that? Rivera demanded, now fighting back-to-back with Chen as more warriors emerged. Possibly, Volkov called back. Patel, if these patterns are like their language, could we create interference? The linguist's eyes lit up with understanding. The warriors are extensions of the crystal matrix, if we could disrupt the base frequency. Less theory, more action. Chen grunted as he barely avoided a crystal blade. We're running out of room to maneuver. Rivera made a quick decision. Patel, start recording the energy patterns. Chen, keep them focused on you. Volkov, find us the largest crystal formation. I have an idea. The next few minutes were a blur of motion and strategy. Chen led the crystal warriors on a complex series of maneuvers while Patel tracked and recorded their energy signatures. Rivera and Volkov made their way to a massive crystal spire that seemed to pulse in time with the warriors' movements. The resonance is strongest here, Volkov confirmed, placing her hand on the crystal's surface. But how do we disrupt it? Rivera smiled grimly. Sometimes the old ways are best. Everyone, cover your ears. Taking a deep breath, she let out a piercing whistle, one she'd learned from her grandfather, a glass blower who had taught her about resonance frequencies. The crystal vibrated beneath her hand. She adjusted the pitch, whistling higher, then lower, searching for the right frequency. The crystal warriors faltered in their attacks, their movements becoming jerky and uncoordinated. In the viewing galleries, alien spectators leaned forward, their various sensory organs fixed on the unprecedented display. It's working. Patel shouted. The pattern is destabilizing. Everyone, hit your highest note. Rivera commanded. The human team's combined frequencies created a discordant harmony that set the crystals thrumming violently. Cracks appeared in the warriors' forms, spreading like lightning across their surfaces. With a sound like shattering glass multiplied 1,000-fold, the crystal warriors exploded into fragments, raining down across the arena floor. The remaining crystal formations dimmed, their power disrupted by the acoustic assault. Silence fell over the chamber. Rivera and her team regrouped, breathing heavily but unharmed. Above them, first observer NX Thalax's voice held a new note, something almost like surprise. The first trial is complete. Humanity has demonstrated unexpected problem-solving capabilities. We're full of surprises, Rivera called out, her voice carrying clearly to the galleries. Should we expect more tests of our capabilities? The second trial awaits, NX Thalax responded. But be warned, not all challenges can be overcome with force or clever tricks. Sometimes, the greatest battles are fought within. As the arena began to reconfigure itself once more, Rivera gathered her team close. Good work, everyone. But they're right about one thing, this was too easy. They're building up to something. Did anyone else notice the other aliens' reactions? Volkov asked quietly. Some of them seemed almost afraid when we broke their crystal warriors. Good, Chen said grimly. Maybe they'll think twice about treating us like lab rats. Rivera's eyes narrowed as she watched the arena transform. No. I think we just confirmed something they feared about humanity. The question is, what are they really testing us for? The answer, she suspected, would prove far more dangerous than any crystal warrior. The arena's transformation was more subtle this time. Instead of dramatic physical changes, the crystalline debris simply melted away, leaving behind a perfectly smooth, mirror-like floor that stretched to the walls. The reflective surface showed the team's faces staring back at them, but something was off about the reflections. "Don't look down," Patel warned suddenly, his voice tense. "The reflections, they're not moving in sync with us." Rivera had already noticed. Her reflection smiled up at her with an expression she wasn't wearing, its eyes holding a predatory gleam. Around her, the other team members' reflections were similarly distorted, each showing twisted versions of themselves. "The second trial begins," NX Thalax announced, but his voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Here, we test the boundaries of mind and reality. Your species prides itself on rationality, on logic. Let us see how well you maintain those qualities when reality itself becomes negotiable." The air shimmered, and suddenly Rivera found herself alone in what appeared to be the bridge of her old ship, the UES Hawking. Everything looked exactly as she remembered it, down to the coffee stain on her command chair from her first day as captain. But that ship had been decommissioned years ago. "Impressive technology," she said aloud, knowing their captors were watching. "But psychological manipulation isn't new to us." "Isn't it?" her own voice responded. She turned to find herself, or rather, a perfect copy, sitting in the captain's chair. "We both know what really happened on the Hawking's last mission. The choice you made. The lives it cost." Elsewhere in the arena, Chen found himself back in the refugee camp where he'd served his first deployment. The sounds and smells were perfect recreations, down to the desperate cries of the civilians he'd failed to save during the terrorist attack. His reflection in a broken window showed him in his younger self's uniform, covered in the blood of those he couldn't protect. Volkov stood in her old university laboratory, surrounded by the failed experiments that had nearly destroyed her career before her breakthrough in xenoanthropology. Her reflection in the polished equipment showed her not as she was, but as she feared she might become, a discredited scientist, her theories proven dangerously wrong. Patel faced his own demon, a perfect recreation of the diplomatic crisis he'd caused 3 years ago when a single mistranslated word had nearly sparked an international incident. His reflection showed him tongue-tied and helpless as his mistake led to catastrophe. "Your minds betray you," NX Thalax's voice echoed through each of their private hells. "Your memories, your fears, your failures, they define you more than your successes. How can a species so haunted by its past be trusted with the future?" Rivera closed her eyes, centering herself. "Team, report in. Focus on my voice." "Here," Chen answered, his voice strained. "In some kind of simulation." "Present," Volkov added. "They're using our memories against us." "Still with you," Patel managed. "But the translations, they're all wrong now. Every word has multiple meanings, conflicting interpretations." Rivera nodded, though she knew they couldn't see her. "Remember your training. These are just projections, sophisticated ones, but still fake. Find the flaws in their illusions." She studied her surroundings more carefully now. The coffee stain on her chair, it was a perfect mirror image of the real one, down to the smallest detail. Too perfect. Memory didn't work that way. Real memories had gaps, inconsistencies. "They're not reading our memories," she realized aloud. "They're reading our fears about our memories. That's the flaw, these scenarios are too perfect, too aligned with our worst interpretations of events." Of course, Volkov's voice held growing excitement despite the strain. "They're using our own minds against us, but they don't understand how human memory actually works. We don't remember things perfectly, we reconstruct them each time we recall them. And our guilt, our fears, they make us remember the worst possible versions," Chen added, understanding dawning in his voice. The translations, Patel suddenly said. They're not really conflicting, they're showing us all possible interpretations simultaneously. But that's not how language works. Context matters. Intent matters. Rivera smiled grimly. Exactly. They're trying to break us by showing us perfect reflections of our imperfect memories. But that's their mistake, humans aren't meant to be perfect. Our imperfections, our ability to learn from them and move forward, that's our strength. She turned to face her doppelganger. Yes, I made a hard call on the hawking. Yes, people died. But I learned from it, grew from it. That memory doesn't haunt me, it guides me. The illusion flickered. Everyone, she commanded, confront your reflections. Not with denial, but with acceptance. Show them why humans face their past instead of running from it. One by one, her team members faced their fears. Chen acknowledged the lives lost but also the thousands saved by his actions that day. Volkov embraced her failed experiments as the stepping stones that led to her breakthroughs. Patel reconciled with his mistake, recognizing how it had made him a better, more careful linguist. The illusions began to fracture, reality bleeding through the cracks. The mirror-like floor showed their true reflections now, tired, stressed, but unbroken. Fascinating, NX Thalax's voice held a new note, concern. You do not seek to overcome your imperfections. You, embrace them. That's what you don't understand about humans, Rivera replied, her voice carrying clearly through the now empty arena. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. Sometimes terrible ones. But we face them, learn from them, and keep moving forward. That's what makes us dangerous, we don't break when we fail. We grow stronger. A murmur ran through the alien audience. Rivera caught glimpses of agitation, of rapid communications passing between different species. They hadn't expected this response. More importantly, they seemed afraid of it. The second trial is complete, NX Thalax announced, but the usual confidence in his voice had wavered. Prepare yourselves for the final test. You have proven your species can fight, can endure. Now we shall see what you are willing to sacrifice for victory. As the arena began to shift again, Rivera gathered her team. They were exhausted, mentally and physically, but their eyes were clear and determined. They're scared, Chen observed quietly. Good, Rivera replied. Because I'm starting to think these trials aren't about proving our worth for membership in their concordat. They're about something else entirely. A threat assessment, Volkov suggested. They're not testing us as potential allies. They're testing us as potential enemies, Patel finished. Every trial has revealed something about human nature that seems to frighten them. Rivera watched as the arena prepared for their final challenge. Then let's show them exactly why they should be afraid of making humanity their enemy. The arena's transformation this time was total and absolute. The walls, floor, and ceiling became transparent, revealing the vast expanse of space around them. Jupiter's massive form loomed behind them, while Earth gleamed like a blue jewel in the distance. But something was wrong with the image. Simulated projections of massive ships surrounded their home planet, their designs matching the Zeraxian vessel they were currently aboard. A prediction, NX Thalax's voice resonated through the chamber. Or perhaps, a warning. Or a threat, Rivera responded, her voice hard. She and her team stood in defensive formation, watching as holographic representations of various alien species materialized around them. She recognized some from the viewing galleries, the serpentine Vexri, the crystalline Ithkari, and others they'd glimpsed during their trials. Your species presents a unique problem, NX Thalax continued, his form appearing before them. In all our centuries of evaluation, we have never encountered a race quite like humanity. Let me guess, Chen said dryly. We didn't pass your tests. On the contrary. The alien's armor rippled with complex patterns. You performed far beyond our predictions. That is precisely the problem. The holographic scene shifted, showing scenes from Earth's history, but not the peaceful moments of scientific achievement or cultural advancement. Instead, they witnessed warfare, conflict, and strife, all leading to rapid technological development. Your species advances through conflict, NX Thalax observed. You grow stronger through adversity. Where others break, you adapt. Where others surrender, you fight. Even now, knowing you face superior forces, your minds search for advantages, weaknesses to exploit. Volkov stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overtaking her caution. You're not testing us for alliance worthiness. This is containment assessment. Indeed. The alien gestured, and the holograms showed more scenes, other alien civilizations that had faced the trials. Some succeeded traditionally, showing perfect order and control. Others failed and were simply never heard from again. The Galactic Concordat maintains peace through predictability. Species that cannot be predicted must be controlled, Rivera finished, her mind racing. Or eliminated. A crude but accurate assessment. NX Thalax moved closer, his 3 sets of eyes studying them intently. Your final trial is simple, accept containment. Allow us to place restrictions on your species development. Limitations on your expansion, your technology, your military capabilities. Do this, and humanity will be granted a place among the stars, safe, controlled, predictable. And if we refuse? Patel asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. The hologram shifted again, showing Earth surrounded by the Zeraxian fleet. Then we must act now, while your species is still manageable. Better to prune a dangerous growth early than allow it to overtake the garden. Rivera looked at her team, seeing the same determination in their eyes that she felt. They had all reached the same conclusion: humanity would never accept being caged, no matter how gilded the bars. There's something you should understand about humans, Rivera said, taking a step toward NX Thalax. Something your tests couldn't reveal because it's not in our memories or our capabilities. It's in our nature. And what is that? We don't like bullies. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Patel, how long have you been decoding their system architecture? The linguist's fingers moved rapidly through the air, interfacing with hidden systems through patterns he'd memorized during their trials. Since the first test. Their language patterns are reflected in their computer systems. Complex, but predictable, just like them. Volkov. Rivera didn't take her eyes off NX Thalax. The arena's systems are integrated with the ship's primary controls, the xenoanthropologist reported. They never considered we might recognize the patterns because they're so fundamental to their way of thinking. Like being unable to see water when you've lived in it your whole life. Chen. The tactical specialist's smile matched Rivera's. Those weren't just combat simulations in the first trial. They were tactical systems tests. I've mapped most of their defense protocols. NX Thalax's armor rippled with what might have been alarm. You cannot hope to overcome our defenses. We have had millennia to perfect them. Perfect means predictable, Rivera countered. You've spent so long creating a perfectly ordered galaxy that you've forgotten something crucial about survival. She nodded to her team. Now. Patel's linguistic algorithms crashed through the ship's communication systems, creating chaos in their perfectly ordered protocols. Volkov's understanding of their psychological patterns let her predict and disrupt their response times. Chen's tactical analysis found the gaps in their defenses. The arena's systems went haywire. In the viewing galleries, alien observers found themselves locked in place as containment fields activated. Emergency signals blared, but in patterns so discordant they paralyzed the Zeraxians' sensitive neural networks. Impossible, NX Thalax staggered, his armor losing its coherent patterns. You were contained, monitored. We were learning, Rivera corrected. Every test, every trial, you showed us exactly how your systems work, how your minds work. Humans don't just adapt to survive, NX Thalax. We turn the things meant to destroy us into tools for our survival. The holograms flickered and died as the team's coordinated attack overwhelmed the ship's systems. Rivera stepped closer to the fallen NX Thalax, her voice carrying to all the watching aliens. Here's humanity's response to your containment proposal: we will not be caged. We will not be controlled. But we're also not the monsters you fear. We don't want to rule or dominate, we just want to be free to find our own path among the stars. She knelt beside the alien observer. So here's our counteroffer: true alliance. Not based on control or predictability, but on mutual respect and understanding. Because if you force us to be your enemies, you'll learn exactly why your tests frightened you so much. Through the transparent walls of the arena, Earth still shone in the distance, not as a target for containment now, but as a symbol of something the Concordat had never encountered before, a species that could not be controlled through fear or force. The question was, would they learn from this lesson, or would humanity's first contact with galactic civilization end in conflict? As Rivera and her team waited for their answer, they prepared for either possibility. After all, that's what humans did best: adapt, survive, and overcome, no matter the challenge. Alarms still blared throughout the Zeraxian vessel, but now they carried a different tone, not the chaos of system failure, but the ordered sound of a civilization confronting change. In the arena, Rivera and her team maintained their control over the ship's systems while alien representatives from across the Concordat gathered in the viewing galleries, no longer as spectators to a trial, but as participants in what could be the most significant diplomatic negotiation in galactic history. You must understand our position, High Counselor Vexthar of the Serpentine Vexri spoke, his coils shifting nervously. For 10,000 years, the Concordat has maintained peace through order. Through predictability. And how's that working out for you? Rivera asked, standing at the center of the arena. The holographic displays now showed not scenes of warfare, but the true state of the Concordat's controlled species: stagnation masked as stability, fear disguised as harmony. Our civilization endures, another representative, an Ithkari crystal being, chimed in. We have not had a major conflict in millennia. No, Volkov agreed, pulling up more data through their newly acquired access to the Concordat's archives. But you also haven't had any major advancements. Your technology has plateaued. Your cultures have calcified. You're not living, you're just existing. NX Thalax had recovered somewhat from the system shock, though his armor still showed irregular patterns. And you propose a better way? Chaos? Constant conflict and change? We propose life, Rivera said firmly. Real life, with all its messiness and uncertainty. Yes, humanity fights. Yes, we can be dangerous. But that's not all we are. Chen activated a new set of holograms, showing different scenes from Earth's history, not the conflicts this time, but the moments that followed them. Former enemies working together to rebuild. Scientific breakthroughs born from cooperation. Art and music and literature that tried to make sense of both the beauty and horror of existence. Humans don't advance just through conflict, Patel explained, his linguist's training helping him find the right words. We advance through contrast. Through the interaction of different ideas, different ways of thinking. Even this situation proves it: we turned your trials into an opportunity for understanding. A murmur ran through the assembled aliens. Rivera could see the impact their words were having, but also the fear still lurking behind their various forms of expression. They needed one final push, not a demonstration of humanity's strength this time, but of their wisdom. We have a choice to make here, she addressed the gathered representatives. All of us. Right now. You can try to contain humanity, force us into your mold of perfect order. If you do that, you'll either fail and face an enemy you helped create, or succeed and lose the very thing that caught your attention about us in the first place. Or. NX Thalax prompted, his tone suggesting he already knew the answer would challenge everything he believed. Or we can show you a different way. Not as rulers or subjects, but as partners. Humanity joins the Concordat not as a controlled species, but as a bridge between order and chaos. We've spent our entire history learning to balance on that edge, let us help you learn to dance on it. Dance? The Ithcari's crystalline form vibrated with confusion. On the edge of chaos? That's where growth happens, Volkov explained, her scientific passion evident. In biology, in physics, in society, the most interesting and productive states exist at the boundary between order and chaos. Too much order leads to stagnation. Too much chaos leads to destruction. But that edge between them, that's where life thrives. Rivera could see the concept taking hold, spreading through the gathered representatives like ripples in a pond. The Concordat had spent so long fighting against chaos that they'd forgotten its necessary role in the universe. Humanity, with its constant internal struggle between order and chaos, offered something they'd never considered, a way to evolve without losing control entirely. We won't dismantle your Concordat, Rivera promised. But we will change it. Not through force, but through example. Let humanity be your test case. Watch how we handle the freedom to grow, to expand, to make mistakes and learn from them. If we prove too dangerous, you'll still have your fleets, your containment protocols. But if we succeed, you could show us all a new way forward. NX Thalax finished, his armor patterns finally settling into a new configuration, not the rigid order of before, but something more fluid, more adaptable. The next several hours were a blur of negotiation, planning, and careful restructuring of ancient protocols. The Concordat would maintain its role as a galactic peacekeeping force, but with new provisions for supervised independence. Humanity would be granted full autonomy within their solar system, with staged expansion rights tied not to compliance with Concordat control, but to demonstrations of responsible growth and cooperation. As the final agreements were being formalized, Chen approached Rivera privately. Think they'll keep their word? They will, she smiled. Because we gave them something more powerful than fear or control, we gave them hope. Hope that there's a way to have both security and progress, both peace and growth. And if they change their minds? Patel asked, joining them. Then we've got copies of their entire tactical database, command protocols, and psychological profiles, Rivera reminded them. But I don't think we'll need them. The Concordat is already changing. Look. Throughout the ship, signs of transformation were evident. The rigid patterns in the walls had begun to show variation. The perfectly synchronized movements of the Zeraxian crew now contained subtle individual differences. Small changes, but significant ones, the first cracks in the facade of perfect order, letting in the light of possibility. Commander, Volkov called out, checking her data feeds. We're receiving transmissions from Earth. Apparently, our disappearance caused quite a stir. They're demanding answers. Rivera looked at her team, tired, tested, but triumphant. Together, they had not only survived the trials but had changed the course of galactic history. Not through superior force or technology, but through that uniquely human ability to turn obstacles into opportunities, to find hope in despair, and to dance on the edge between chaos and order. Tell them. She paused, considering her words carefully. Tell them to prepare for visitors. It's time for humanity to take its place among the stars, not as servants or masters, but as teachers. After all, she smiled, looking out at the transformed arena where their journey had begun. That's what humans do best, we learn, we adapt, and we show others how to do the same. Beyond the ship's transparent walls, Earth continued its eternal dance around the sun, its blue-white light a beacon in the darkness. But now it shone not as a target for containment or a threat to be neutralized, but as a symbol of something the galaxy desperately needed, proof that between perfect order and total chaos, there existed a path forward. A human path.